What's up, y'all? You're watching Union Minded. I'm your host, Eric, and today we're going to talk about what everybody's talking about: student loan forgiveness. Nah, I'm kidding. What we're really going to talk about is the PRO Act and why it's so important that it gets passed, and why we as union members and union activists should be frothing at the mouth in a rage that it is not being discussed. That's what we're going to talk about today. But first, hit the like button, hit the notification bell, drop some comments, share these videos. Let's grow the channel and grow our sphere of influence. I did want to lead off with student loan debt forgiveness. Let's keep in mind that it's not enough. $10,000 is going to help a lot of folks, but it doesn't hurt anymore to just cancel all of the student debt. $1.9 trillion is the amount of student debt out there, and it would cost literally nothing to just wipe it clean. We've had suspension of payments for a while now thanks to the pandemic, and it's shown that it hasn't really hurt these institutions. So my opinion is we should all support student loan cancellation in its entirety. But I digress. Let's talk about this PRO Act, because here we are. You know, everybody's taking victory laps about student loan debt forgiveness, even though, again, it's not nearly enough. It's means tested. It's not going to help folks that make too much money. But anyway, the PRO Act, why is it so important? Let's give you some where we're at kind of information on the PRO Act. We're going to get into some details as well. But where we are, right? On March 9th, 2021, the PRO Act passed in the House, 225 to 206, with one person not voting. 220 Democrats voted yay, with one nay. 5 Republicans voted yay, with 205 nays. It's important to note that 205 Republican House members voted no on the PRO Act. Now, the PRO Act is supported by the IBEW, by the IO, and by the membership in general. It's supported by all unions. The AFL-CIO supports the PRO Act. All working people should really support the PRO Act. But if you're not hip to the game and don't know what the PRO Act does, we're gonna educate each other on the PRO Act. Also, after it passed on March 9th, on March 11th, it was sent to the Senate. It was read 2 times and then referred to the Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions, where it is languishing. And where is the urgency to pass the PRO Act? Why is it not as urgent as it should be? I can only assume corporate Dems aren't interested in bringing it to the floor, knowing they won't get to 60 votes to beat a filibuster. Even if all of the Democrats vote for it, that still only puts you at 50. Not enough if you're not doing it through reconciliation, not enough to pass it, because surely the Republicans in the Senate will filibuster it. So you need 60 votes. I don't think we have 10 or 11 Republicans that would join Democrats to pass the PRO Act. They are corporate bought. We have many Democrats that are corporate bought as well. But in this age of partisanship, it doesn't seem like anyone on the Republican side is going to vote to help working people. Well, what is the bill, and why should we be raging that it hasn't been passed yet, or why we should be raging for it to pass? The PRO Act amends labor law. It amends the National Labor Relations Act. It amends Taft-Hartley, that corporate snapback, and it also amends the LMRDA of 1959. Some of the amendments that some of the changes, it revises the definitions of employees, supervisor, and employer, increasing who is covered by the NLRA. So more people that are covered by the National Labor Relations Act is a good thing and should be welcomed. It allows for secondary strikes One of the biggest things that Taft-Hartley did was it made it illegal to do a solidarity strike. Well, guess what? If the PRO Act passes, suck it, Taft-Hartley. Also, the PRO Act makes captive audience meetings an unfair labor practice. Captive audience meetings, for those of you who don't know, if you're reading or keeping up with the Starbucks campaign to unionize those stores, captive audience meetings are when the Starbucks upper management forces the baristas to attend meetings where they tell them a bunch of misinformation about unions and why unions are bad for the company and bad for their own well-being. It's an unfair labor practice that is getting ready to be defined by law if the PRO Act is to get passed. It also addresses procedures for union representations, using representation in elections. So that's also good. It revises what are the rules for union elections. Now, if you look up on US Gov, House Resolution 842, that's the PRO Act, Protecting the Right to Organize Act of 2021. Now I'm going to read to you the summary that is available straight off the website, just because I think it's very important and I think you'll appreciate it. So here is basically what the PRO Act is going to do for working folks and for those who are unorganized but want to join a union. This is why it's so important. This bill expands various labor protections related to employees' rights to organize and collectively bargain in the workplace. Among other things, it, 1, revises the definitions of employee, supervisor, and employer to broaden the scope of individuals covered by the Fair Labor Standards. Number 2, permits labor organizations to encourage participation of union members in strikes initiated by employees represented by a different labor organization, commonly called secondary strikes or solidarity strikes. And 3, or general strikes. And 3, prohibits employers from bringing claims against unions that conduct such secondary strikes. So this, just right off the rip, you can hear that the PRO Act is reinforcing the government stance that they are backing organized labor and unions for all workers. The bill also allows collective bargaining agreements to require all employees represented by the bargaining unit to contribute fees to the labor organization for the cost of such representation, notwithstanding a state law to the contrary, and expands unfair labor practices to include prohibitions against replacement of or discrimination against workers who participate in strikes. So now it's basically undermining right to work laws, because it's requiring, or it's allowing for union contracts to require that everyone that is represented under that union contract pay their working dues and their dues entirely. The bill makes it an unfair labor practice to require or coerce employees to attend employer meetings designed and to discourage union membership, and prohibits employers from entering into agreements with employees under which employees waive the right to pursue or join collective or class action litigation. Again, this bill is going to further enhance working rights. The bill further prohibits employers from taking adverse actions against an employee, including employees with management responsibilities, in response to that employee participating in protected activities related to the enforcement of the prohibitions against unfair labor practices, i.e. whistleblower protections. Such protected activities include providing information about a potential violation to an enforcement agency, participating in an enforcement proceeding, initiating a proceeding concerning an alleged violation or assisting in such a proceeding, or refusing to participate in an activity the employee reasonably believes is a violation of labor laws. Finally, the bill addresses the procedures for union representation elections, provides employees with the ability to vote in such elections remotely by telephone or the internet, modifies the protections against unfair labor practices that result in serious economic harm, and establishes penalties and permits injunctive relief against entities that fail to comply with the National Labor Relations Board orders. All very good things. If we get the PRO Act passed, I have the feeling that labor density is going to increase at levels we haven't seen in our lifetimes. There's a reason we should be raging that we aren't making a bigger deal about getting the PRO Act passed. Call your congressman, call your senator, and get on their asses about passing the PRO Act. And remember, the fight's not left and right, it's up and down. And it's going to take solidarity to win always. Remember, each one, teach one, get out there and reach one. Peace.